The savannah night draped itself heavily over the city, thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and the damp, loamy smell rising from the nearby river. Gas lamps cast a flickering, golden glow on the intricate ironwork of balconies and the ancient cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of passage. It was a city that breathed history, where the past felt less like memory and more like a constant, whispering presence. Into this weighted stillness walked Amara Dubois, her silhouette tall and defined against the amber light. Her journey home from the community center, where she taught self-defense, was a familiar ritual. Tonight, the air felt particularly close, holding the day's heat. Her sneakers made soft sounds on the uneven path, a counterpoint to the distant chirp of crickets. A former judo champion whose promising career had been cut short by injury, Amara now channeled that discipline into empowering other women. That same focus was evident in her posture, erect, aware, yet relaxed. She moved not with fear, but with intention, a way of navigating the world learned through experience, understanding how a woman alone could be perceived. Then came the shift, subtle at first, the low, guttural purr of an engine detaching itself from the city's gentle hum. Headlights swept across a moss-draped oak ahead, momentarily pinning her in their glare, before settling into a slow crawl behind her. A police cruiser. Its presence felt deliberate, too slow for a routine patrol, too quiet for an emergency. Amara didn't turn. She kept walking, her senses heightened, the familiar rhythm of her breathing a conscious anchor. She knew this dance, the feeling of being watched, categorized, assessed by unseen eyes. As she turned onto Ellsworth Street, a narrower passage flanked by shadowed gardens and tall brick townhouses, the cruiser matched her turn, closing the distance slightly. 3 figures were visible inside. Jake Miller, in the passenger seat, leaned slightly forward, his face partially illuminated. A youngish man with a restless energy and a faint scar tracing his cheekbone. Behind the wheel sat Frank Doyle, older, heavier, his expression impassive, conveying a sense of bored authority. Barely visible in the back was the rookie, Ben Carter, his posture stiff, eyes wide, absorbing the scene with palpable unease. Miller's voice cut through the quiet, laced with a practiced, condescending drawl. "Nice night for a walk? All alone?" Doyle chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Miller pressed, his words becoming coarser, commenting on her figure, the way she walked. Amara maintained her pace, her gaze fixed ahead. She recognized the pattern, the casual intrusion, the attempt to provoke a reaction, to establish dominance through sheer presence and crude remarks. Her silence was not submission. It was a refusal to engage on their terms. Just yards from the wrought iron gate leading to the alley behind her apartment building, the cruiser eased to a stop. The passenger door opened with a deliberate creak. Miller emerged, stretching lazily as if he had all the time in the world. His boots struck the cobblestones with unnecessary force as he ambled up beside her, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from him. He smelled faintly of stale coffee and cigarettes. "You look familiar," he said, his eyes roaming over her openly, a smirk playing on his lips. "Seen you before, right? TV, maybe? That fighting stuff? Karate or something?" He clicked his tongue when she didn't respond. "Come on now, just being friendly. Don't get many fine women like you strolling around this late." His voice lowered, taking on a suggestive, almost conspiratorial tone. "A dress like that gives a man ideas. Makes him think you are looking for a little attention." And then, the act that shattered the night's uneasy peace. Quick, almost casual, like swatting a fly, Miller reached out and flicked the hem of her gray cotton dress upwards. It was a brief touch, barely grazing her skin, but the violation was absolute. It was an assertion of power, a dismissal of her autonomy, performed with the casual cruelty of someone who expects no consequences. Sharp, barking laughter erupted from Doyle and Carter inside the car. Amara stopped, dead still. For the space of a single, controlled breath, the world seemed to hold its own. The cricket sounds paused. The distant city hum faded. Then slowly, with unnerving calm, she turned. She didn't look at his hands, his badge, or even his smirking mouth. She looked directly into his eyes. What Miller saw there wiped the smirk from his face instantly. The confidence drained, replaced by a sudden, stark uncertainty. He saw a depth of stillness, a focused intensity that felt ancient and immovable. "Relax," he managed, his voice suddenly thin, losing its swagger. "It was just a joke." Her reply was quiet, yet it resonated in the narrow street like a struck bell. "No." Her voice was low, steady, each word precise. "You do not get to joke about me." Before Miller could process the shift, before his training or bravado could kick in, Amara moved. It wasn't explosive. It was efficient, leveraging principles honed over years on the judo mat. Her hand darted out, securing a grip on his wrist. Not a panicked grab, but a calculated lock. Simultaneously, she stepped in, pivoting smoothly on the ball of her foot. Using his forward momentum and her own centered balance, she applied pressure. Miller's larger frame crumpled inwards as his center of gravity vanished. He landed hard on his knees, his breath escaping in a shocked gasp, his cheek scraping against the rough curb. The cruiser door slammed open. Doyle surged out, his face contorted with anger, his hand instinctively going to his holstered weapon. "Get your damn hands off him!" he roared, the command echoing between the brick walls. But Amara was already flowing into her next movement. Anticipating his charge, she shifted her weight, ducking slightly under his reaching arm. As he stumbled past, she rose, driving her elbow firmly into his side, just below the ribs. It wasn't a blow meant to injure severely, but to disrupt, to control. Doyle gasped, stumbling sideways, hitting the cruiser's flank with a heavy thud that knocked the wind out of him. He leaned there, stunned, eyes wide with disbelief. Throughout this, Ben Carter had remained frozen beside the open passenger door. His hand had twitched towards his radio, then his weapon, but he'd done neither. He watched, paralyzed, as the scene unfolded with a speed and precision utterly absent from his training scenarios. This wasn't a street fight. It was a demonstration of absolute control, executed with chilling calm. He saw no malice in Amara's eyes, only focus. Amara stepped back, creating space. She released Miller's wrist, letting gravity finish the job as he remained kneeling, blinking dazedly. She calmly adjusted the strap of her training bag on her shoulder. Her breathing was as even as it had been minutes before. She surveyed the scene, Miller on the ground, Doyle gasping against the car, Carter standing like a statue. Then, with the same measured pace as before, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the deeper shadows near her building's entrance without a single look back. She left them there. 3 armed officers immobilized not by superior force, but by an unexpected assertion of dignity and skill that had completely dismantled their power dynamic. The cruiser's engine idled, its headlights now illuminating only an empty street and the profound, ringing silence. The fluorescent lights of Precinct 4 seemed harsher the next morning. The usual boisterous shift change banter was absent, replaced by hushed tones and averted gazes. Miller slunk into his desk, his usual swagger gone, avoiding eye contact. Doyle moved with a heavy stiffness, pouring coffee with a trembling hand. Carter looked pale and sleep-deprived, jumping at loud noises. The air was thick with unspoken questions and a palpable unease. Lieutenant Evelyn Reed, a veteran of internal oversight, with a reputation for meticulousness and an allergy to departmental cover-ups, noticed the subtle shifts immediately. Her instincts sharpened when an anonymous email landed in her inbox. Check Unit 4B's logs from last night, Ellsworth Street area. She wasn't scared. You should be. Reed pulled the records. A significant gap in patrol activity for Unit 4B during the relevant time frame. No calls, no stops logged. GPS tracking showed the cruiser moving slowly, almost stalking, through the residential streets near Ellsworth, then stationary for several minutes, followed by a rapid departure, none of it matching the officer's cursory end-of-shift report. The dash cam was conveniently offline. More damningly, Reed's tech team discovered anomalies in the body cam logs for Miller and Doyle. Timestamps indicated deletions performed hours after their shift ended, routed through an off-network IP address linked to Miller's home. A clumsy attempt at erasing evidence using outdated IT privileges he shouldn't have retained. Carter's body cam, however, had captured that vital, brief image of Amara walking away before its auto-suspend function kicked in, a calm figure receding into the darkness, undermining any potential claim of aggression on her part. Reed also quietly obtained grainy footage from a cafe's exterior security camera down the block. It didn't show faces clearly, but the sequence was unmistakable. The cruiser stopping, Miller approaching the woman, the distinct, insulting flick of his wrist towards her dress, her sudden stillness, and then the rapid, chaotic aftermath where the officers ended up subdued. Reed interviewed them separately. Doyle offered vague denials and blamed shadows. Miller invoked his right to counsel, his face a mask of sullen defiance. But Carter broke down. He recounted the events, his voice laced with awe and fear. He emphasized Amara's control, her lack of fear. "It wasn't like she attacked us, Lieutenant," he confessed, hands shaking. "It was like she just reminded us we didn't matter in that moment. She knew exactly what we were doing, and she wasn't intimidated. That lack of fear, that's what got to Miller. And honestly, it scared me more than if she'd pulled a weapon." His testimony, focusing on their provocation and her controlled response, painted a devastating picture. While the internal investigation proceeded methodically, the story seeped into the community fabric. The video clip from Amara's self-defense class surfaced on a local neighborhood forum, shared initially by a proud parent. Her calm instruction, "They will expect you to flinch. Do not give them what they came for," resonated powerfully. People started connecting the dots. Old newspaper clippings of Amara the Calm Storm Dubois from her judo days reappeared. More parents shared anecdotes online about her quiet dedication at the community center. Local artists sketched her likeness. A barista taped her photo to a tip jar inscribed "Dignity." The narrative taking shape was one of quiet strength, resilience, and grace under pressure, a stark contrast to the official silence emanating from the precinct. News outlets began calling Amara, requests growing more urgent. She didn't answer. Her silence wasn't passive. It was strategic. It allowed the official investigation to run its course, allowed the officer's actions and the department's response, or lack thereof, to be scrutinized without her becoming the focal point of a media spectacle. It amplified the wrongness of the initial encounter, making the officer's fear, first of her, then of exposure, the central theme. The inevitable conclusion arrived quietly. Without press conferences, Miller was formally suspended, facing termination. Facing irrefutable evidence of tampering and assault, and likely reading the writing on the wall, Doyle submitted his resignation effective immediately. Carter, at his own request, and with Reed's cautious endorsement, was transferred to the fledgling Civilian Police Empathy Initiative. "I need to understand why I just stood there," he admitted to Reed. "I need to learn to be better than that." Subtle changes rippled through the department. Mandatory bystander intervention training was reviewed. Body cam protocols were tightened. The incident became a cautionary tale whispered in the locker rooms. Weeks later, under the crisp blue sky, of a savanna autumn morning, Amara walked her usual route. The air was cooler now, carrying the scent of wood smoke and decaying leaves. She noticed the street lamp on Ellsworth Street burned steadily now, its bulb replaced. A small, discreet security camera was newly mounted high on the adjacent building. The cracks in the cobblestones where Miller had knelt seemed to have been recently patched, small acknowledgments of a night the city was trying, imperfectly, to both remember and move past. As she neared the community center, the new mural came into view, vibrant against the old brick. The painted figure, her figure, captured in a moment of balanced deflection, radiated quiet power. She didn't stop to admire it. It wasn't about her, not solely. It was about the principle she embodied that night. A young girl, walking hand in hand with her mother, watched Amara pass, a flicker of recognition and something like admiration in her eyes. Amara offered a small, almost imperceptible nod. She continued her walk, her steps even and sure, moving into the sunlight. The city carried her story now, woven into its fabric alongside the tales of battles and bells. Amara Dubois, the calm storm, hadn't needed to raise her voice. She had simply refused to shrink, and in doing so, had reminded a piece of the world about the unyielding strength found in quiet dignity.